You are listening to the Loida Lewis podcast, hosted by Loida Lewis. She's a trailblazing businesswoman, leader, philanthropist, and the widow of Reginald F. Lewis, the visionary leader who was the first African American to build $1 billion company. With unparalleled determination, Loida Lewis has not only excelled as a successful attorney, but also shaped a $1 billion empire. Following the untimely passing of her husband, Reginald F. Lewis, she took the helm of TLC Beatrice, carving her legacy as a successful business leader. Be inspired and learn from her as she shares her wisdom, the secrets to her success in both business, in love, and in life. Let's live, love, laugh, and learn. With your host, Miss Loida Lewis.
Welcome to the Loida Lewis podcast. And today I have the honor of presenting to you Carmen Evelyn Nuyda, but I really call her Carlyn. So this is personal. She is the daughter of my BFF, best friend forever, at St. Agnes when we were in high school. So I will call her Carlyn. Carlyn, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Welcome. Carlyn is the author of Lizzy, Elizabeth Keckley Story, and she is really the first black couturier at the White House in that era. So can you please tell the audience?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you for having me here, by the way. I authored a book, and it's based out of the story of a woman named Elizabeth Keckley. Elizabeth Keckley was a formerly enslaved woman, and for 30 years, she suffered the unimaginable. And she was able to save up enough money to purchase her freedom. And when she did that, she made the brave move to Washington, D.C. She was originally from Virginia and moved to Washington, D.C. to seek employment. In her final desperate hour, she was able to land the position as the official dressmaker to the First Lady, Mary Todd Lincoln. That relationship blossomed into more than just a professional relationship. They became the best of friends. She became Mrs. Lincoln's confidant. And throughout the course of their friendship, she created some of the most incredible gowns. The inaugural dress, the gown that she wore on the night of the assassination, and everything in between. So that really is a book. This is really a book that celebrates her long legacy and her influence in changing American fashion as we see it today. She was, in fact, the first documented American haute couturier.
Great.
So
she's not well known. So can you just tell the audience, first of all, she was enslaved.
Yes.
So how did she learn the craft of being couturier? Or
Sure.
Couturier is, dressmaker, but this is high fashion, so it's called couturier,
Yes.
French word.
French word for the highest form of sewing. When she was born in 1818, she was born out of, how shall I say, her biological father was also her master. And her mother, by the name of Agnes Hobbs, was in charge of sewing all the clothing for the family, for the Burwell family. And alongside that, she was also in charge of sewing all the clothing for all the enslaved people in the Burwell plantation. And growing up, she taught Elizabeth the secrets of the trade. And together, as mother and daughter, they would often find each other, sitting down, stitching garments as a form of refuge, as a form of escape, as a form of survival. And that technique, I guess, was passed down to her by her mother, who was not only an exceptional cook, but she was an amazing dressmaker.
Yes.
So that's how she learned. And she just sort of raised the bar from there.
That's wonderful. Now, I am just wondering, before you became a writer,
Yes.
okay, what have you been doing?
Okay, so interestingly, life life happens in the most unexpected ways. 15 years ago, yes, 15 years ago, I opened a bridal salon catering to brides of distinction. And what I had to offer was a little different in that my dresses were all one of a kind, made to measure. So a bride would walk into my atelier, we would sit down for a consultation, discuss all of her dreams, that she wishes for in a bridal gown. And I sketch the design, I come up with concepts, and from there, we bring the dress to life. And so I was doing this for 15 years as a self-taught dressmaker myself, just like Elizabeth Keckley, because in my college years, I was not able to attend fashion school. It was at a time when my mom recently became widowed, and she had the responsibility of taking care of 5 children, me being the third, and on my way to first year college. And fashion school was a lot more expensive than going to state college. So I had no choice. I had to attend state college and put my, fashion design dreams aside. And all the while, however, I've always been, intrigued by the technical aspect of dressmaking, the history of fashion, and even in the way that I would style myself, as a young lady. And I just basically taught myself how to make dresses, and how I did that is a matter of practical thinking, I suppose. I would purchase couture dresses, whether they would be by Mr. Dior or Yves Saint Laurent or Halston, Chanel, Givenchy, and I would take them home and I would inspect it and I would study it, and then I would copy it on a muslin, which is a very inexpensive cotton fabric, which is actually what they use at the first stage of couture dressmaking. When you have a couture dress made, they don't execute the garment straight to the fashion fabric. They first, execute it on an inexpensive muslin. So I studied that and I sort of taught myself, and after a while realized that each designer had their trade secret. Dior had a certain silhouette, as did Halston, as did Givenchy. So I taught myself that, and by the time I was ready to open up my own business, I hired the best dressmakers I could afford. One of the things that you taught me was surround yourself with the best people, the people that can teach you the secrets of the trade, so that you are in the company of good men and women. So what I did was I hired the best dressmaker I could afford, and her name was Ada. She was Filipina, and she was exceptional. And I watched her sew, and I dared not tell her that I've been trying secretly myself, and she would teach me and I would watch. And eventually she said, "Oh, you can do it. Try it." And that's how it started.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So did you see that? She had a dream, but because of family tragedy, her father died. She took whatever was offered, but she has never given up on her dream to sew. So that's really what you wanted to learn.
I really wanted to learn how to sew.
To be a designer.
To be a designer. Not so much for the fame of it or any of that, but just the craft of it. I really loved, the idea of making women feel beautiful. And for me, it's almost kind of like a painter is with a paintbrush. The garment, the needle, and the thread were my paintbrushes. The scissors were my, sculpting table, if you will, and or my sculpting tools rather, and the cutting table was, the artist's palette, if you will. So I just wanted to be that kind of an artist. Fabric was my medium.
And why did you choose wedding dresses?
I chose wedding dresses because it was a specialty, and also because I wanted to be part of that most important dress for a bride. I wanted to be a part of that woman's experience. I wanted to, I suppose, live vicariously in that joy. And I never came across an unhappy bride. So, why not work and be joyful at the same time?
Beautiful choice.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
And you did that for 15 years.
For 15 years, and then something happened in my life that caused me to make the hard decision to close the business. I was thriving. It got to the point where I had to turn down some orders because I was very meticulous about the work. I didn't want the quality to suffer. And since I was a small boutique, I wanted to keep it intimate. I wanted to keep it very exclusive. But something happened where I was diagnosed with an illness. One day I started to notice that I couldn't hold the scissors. I couldn't thread the needle. I was shaking too much. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm stressed. Maybe I'm going through, some kind of a nervous breakdown, or maybe I'm overworked or something like that. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, you're stressed. Take a few weeks off. And so that was that. Then I came back to work, and then my feet started to get numb. And at the time I was wearing red bottom soled shoes, because you want to always look smashing when you're receiving your clients. So then my doctor said, those are, blocking your blood flow.
Your shoes.
Your shoes, that's why they're numb. You might want to, wear some other kind of shoes, something more comfortable. Consider wearing flat shoes or something that's not so restrictive. So I did that, and that didn't change anything. In fact, things got worse. And so finally, I went to see another doctor, and he said, I'm going to have some brain scans taken, and we'll find out what happens. Ultrasound and brain scans. And then the news came that I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Wow. So, very important. If something is not quite right with one doctor, always get a second opinion.
Yes.
That
yes.
was smart.
Yes. So I went to this neurologist who then said, you're going to have to undergo therapy immediately because 70% of your brain is covered in sclerosis, which is, and the translation for sclerosis is wounds.
Wow.
So I said,
My
well,
God.
what does that mean? And so he gave me a battalion of, things to expect. And they were not promising things, loss of sight, loss of memory, loss of, movement, paralysis, speech impediments, on and on and on.
Oh my God.
The list goes on and on. And so I said, wow, that's really devastating. I still had 2 children and a husband and life, so I started to think, well, you said this actually, you can't have it all. You got to give one thing up.
Really?
You said you can have career, you can have family, but you can't have all of it
At the same time.
At the same time, you have to at least give one thing up. So I said at the same time was the main part of it. So I was like, that means it's temporary. So I'm going to give up what I think is the best thing to give up. I can't give up my kids. I can't give up my family. I can't give up hope in myself. So I'm going to give up the business. And doing that was very hard.
Because you were successful
I was
already.
Successful. I was
Your
happy
name was
doing,
getting there.
Yes, I was being featured in all the bridal magazines.
And Vogue, even.
Not Vogue quite. I didn't quite make it to Vogue, but I made it to Martha Stewart.
Right.
I made it to Brides. I made it to
Yes.
InStyle magazine.
Yes.
I mean, the list goes on and on. And I stayed somewhat exclusive. I was one of those like, if you know, you know.
That's right.
I wasn't
Very good.
mainstream, but
Yes.
if you know, you know.
Yes. No.
And I always thought to myself that I didn't earn my stripes. I don't have the epaulets. I didn't earn my stripes. All the other guys really earned their stripes. They're real couturiers. And one day, I was with Rene Salud, Edgar Madamba. I think it might have been Michael Cinco. They were all the
Yes,
great Filipino
these are all
design-
big names in Philippine couture.
They were like the maestros of Philippine couture. They visited Los Angeles, and I kind of tagged along. And we were in this Chinese restaurant, and I remember I was saying something along the lines of, "Oh no, I'm not. I'm not part of that." And Edgar Madamba said, "You stop that right now. You are a couturier. You need to stop saying that. What are you talking about? I've seen your work. You need to
Wow.
stop." So I
High
learned
praise.
high praise, and I learned you have to claim what you deserve.
Absolutely.
You have to claim what you want.
Yes, very
And
good.
so I learned that. I don't want to say I was just a dressmaker. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm just a manager." You are a manager.
Right,
Or
yes.
I am, a telephone operator.
Yes.
I'm just a telephone operator. Remove the just.
Yes,
Say,
yes.
I am a telephone operator.
Right.
So
yes.
I
Mostly that's a quality that Filipino women,
Yes.
Filipino women, or maybe people of color, but Filipino women, we all try to
cut.
undercut our own brilliance.
Yes, we try to flatten ourselves. It's this, Can I pass through? This kind of like, this,
Yes.
even this energetically,
Yes.
this motion
Yes.
is
That's
very
right.
sort of like
Right.
flattening.
Yes,
Not
yes.
to say that you're not supposed to be polite and respectful, but I learned that. And so going back to the illness, I had to focus on my health. And what I did was I reinvented myself, and I maintained the shop, but I removed all the wedding dresses. And as God would have it, my head dressmaker wanted to retire, and it was of no relation to my diagnosis. She just wanted to retire, and so I also saw that as a sign. So things started to sort of flow in that direction, but there was something about the space I did not want to give up. Maybe it was denial. Maybe it was all these things. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was ego. I'll just hold on to this. Maybe I'll just do 1 or 2 clients at a time or something. And then I ran into a monk. And the monk said, and it was a very desperate day. I was very sad because it was at a moment when I was deciding whether or not I was going to renew my lease. And the monk said, "You are going to be fine."
And you met him by chance?
I met him by chance at Starbucks. I ran into him, spilled all the coffee on myself, and was very volatile, very angry, energetically ugly. And
you were undergoing so many
so much
things.
stress.
Yes.
And he said, "First of all, not today. You're not doing that today," he said. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's a monk. How can I, be snappy with a monk?" And then he said, and he goes, "Everything's going to be okay."
Wow.
He goes, "Do you have time? Walk with me." This really happened on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks in Los Angeles. And I said, "I guess." So we started walking, and I walked into his temple on Ventura Boulevard, the Shaolin Temple. And he said, "Sit down." And he just let me sit down and breathe. And he started to light the incense and dim the lights. He closed the door. And I just felt this release of all the anxiety. And at that point, I said, "What is this? This is prayer. This is prayer." And so I started to get more into meditation. I started to get more into mindfulness, started to practice breathing, became what they call a student of the Shaolin, started taking what they call Qigong, which is a movement, a form of martial arts movement, where it's focusing on the qi, the flow of your energy. And little did I know that as I was doing that, I was actually activating my own healing. And the studio, my atelier, started to morph into my own personal meditation studio. So I set it up like a meditation studio. The next thing I know, I would invite my friends over. Would you like to come and meditate with me? We would meditate. And then I said, oh, this is kind of like profitable, possibly. Let me look into opening it into a meditation studio. So I did that. And what I would do is I would invite people. I would have a workshop schedule for a small fee. They could come in and we would meditate together. We would have sound baths. We would have open talks. We would have journaling sessions and workshops. And the next thing I know, COVID hit. And the health department said, you cannot have this kind of one-on-one with people. You have to temporarily close. And then that's when I said, that's a sign. I now need to practice this at home. And this is the sign for me to really let go of the physical representation of ownership of something that is not serving my highest good anymore. And during COVID, I unraveled and I started to write.
What do you mean unraveled?
I fell apart. I unraveled. I felt lost. And even in as much as I practiced meditation and mindfulness, I felt, what am I going to do with my life? Exactly, what am I going to do now? I have nothing now. God knows how long this COVID is going to be. And of course, it was years, 3 years, I think it was. And so I said, what are we going to do? What am I going to do?
But how about your illness?
Oh, yeah. My illness started to improve. So with my condition, you have to get an MRI every 6 months to see where you're at. Now, I was being given a battalion of prescription drugs and pain medications. And I stopped it. I went cold turkey, much to the insistence of my doctor to continue. Otherwise, I'm going to rapidly decline. I said, but this is not living. I'm not in control of myself. I don't have agency of myself. I'm half here and half there. I'm
with the medication.
The medication, and having to inject myself in the stomach every other day, and it was expensive and it was debilitating. Yeah, it's supposed to slow, because there's no cure for MS, but it's supposed to slow down the progression of the disease. But how am I living? I'm like a zombie. I'm not present. I can't do this. I'm not living. So I stopped. And surprisingly, on the 6th month, after 1 year, my MRI, the neurologist was like, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to continue whatever it is you're doing, because the lesions are all dormant; they're not active.
Wow!
And a lot of them are gone.
My God! In your brain?
In my brain.
Wow!
A lot of them are gone, and I knew that because I started to improve. I started to become more amble. I didn't have to use my cane anymore. I wasn't slurring in my speech. My memory was coming back. So
that's a miracle.
It is a miracle.
First of all, the courage for you to say no more medicine.
No more medicine.
That's very courageous. Yes.
My mom was against it.
Of course.
My brother, who is in the medicine was against it. All of my friends were against it. They were like, we want you to stick around.
Yes,
you have kids. And I go, and I know, that's why I want to be present, and I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
Wow.
I know I'll be fine.
Wow.
So as of now, of lately, I'm apparently doing great. I'm drug free. I don't have any medicine.
Yes.
But it was during COVID when I sort of underwent another dark period. I think it was a combination of the conditions of the times and feeling isolated. I don't know. It's safe to say that I'm very, very, very emotive social person.
Yes.
I love human interaction. I love being outdoors. And that really, really sort of presented a new level of understanding that I didn't think I was capable of, which was depression. depression in the darkest form.
Yes, because you lost you lost your business. You were in physical pain.
Physical pain,
and
I also was having I thought I had my happy place in my meditation studio,
yes.
and I felt like, you were taking everything away from me.
Yeah.
That's not nice,
Yes,
I don't
yes.
like you anymore.
Yes,
That was
of course,
my personality
of
at
course.
the time.
Anger.
And so these were the stages. And then one night I was going through, in a fit of boredom, going through my computer and deleting files. And then I was deleting, and I thought to myself, wait, there's a file that I've been maintaining for 15 years. It was my secret obsession that nobody knew. I wouldn't even, publicly talk about it. But my family knew, my children knew, my then husband knew, because that's all I would talk about. Did you know that America's first couturier was a formerly enslaved Black woman named Elizabeth Keckley?
You discovered her.
I discovered her in, I would research Dior, I would research Givenchy, and somewhere along all of that plethora of information, I stumbled across an image of a violet dress, velvet violet dress. And I thought, what is that? I looked at the period. That is not indicative of the Civil War fashion. What is that? Right? And I thought, wow, that's different, And how that it was spurred by a bride who came into the shop and she said, I would like a wedding dress evocative of the Civil War. And I said, you must be kidding. You need to leave my shop. There's no way I'm going to celebrate the Civil War, let alone romanticize and glamorize it. I mean, that was my actual response.
Yes.
And she goes, no, but you don't understand. I'm doing a dissertation on it. All my life's work is centered around the fashion of the Civil War. And it has nothing to do with, celebrating, the ugly side of it. It's really about the clothes. So I said, let me review. Give me a few days. Let me review and find out what I can. Because first of all, I'm not well versed in this era. I don't know if I have the chops for it. I want to be fair to you and give you an honest, consultation. So I went to work. She gave me 3 days because she was going that weekend to another bridal shop. So she gave me 3 days and the budget was pretty hefty. So I was like, I'm interested, but I also don't want to take on a job that I can't deliver.
Yes.
So I was researching. That's when I saw the violet gown. And I said, what is that? That's different. And it was Elizabeth Keckley. And that put me in a trajectory of 15 years from the beginning of that moment to the time I closed my shop. I was gathering information. I was constantly in research, in pursuit of learning about her. So that was how I stumbled across her story.
Wow, that's great. That's a great story.
Thank
Wonderful. Just for everyone, can we just have a very close?
Sure.
Yes.
This
All
is
right.
the book.
Okay. So Lizzy, because Elizabeth's nickname is becomes Lizzy or Liz. The Elizabeth Keckley Story, from bondage to becoming America's first couturier.
Yes.
All right. And so, being the first couturier, you had mentioned it already, that it was Mary Todd Lincoln
Yes.
during the time of the emancipation of the slaves.
Yes.
The Civil War.
Yeah, at the height of the Civil War. She started off actually before she was servicing Mrs. Lincoln. She actually was the dressmaker of the other side. Varina Davis, Jefferson Davis's wife.
Oh my God.
The Confederate president.
President.
Okay, and let's not make any mistake about it. She was not subservient to them. She at the time already was a free woman, but she did that because it was a political move. She wanted to learn what was going on that side of the conversation.
Oh my God, she's almost like a spy.
She, not almost. She actually, I would consider her a bona fide spy. Because all the women would then tell all the dirty things and all the secrets of their husbands, the generals, and the future plans. While she's down there hemming the dress, Verena Davis is saying, the military troops are going to be infiltrating the blah, blah, blah. And Elizabeth Keckley would then go, then she would go to the other side and say,
Wow.
did you know?
Wow.
So at the time, she was not yet acquainted with Mrs. Lincoln, but she was already acquainted with other women from the Union.
She was also making their clothes. She was making them.
She had the most illustrious, to this day, I challenge the House of Dior, Chanel, to provide a client list as illustrious as Elizabeth Keckley's.
Wow.
She was servicing the wives of the most powerful men of the time.
At the time.
On both sides. So it was through the recommendation of one of her clients, who was the wife of a member of the Union, of Lincoln's cabinet. And she said, you're so good, I'm going to introduce you. If you do this dress for me, because I'm in a pinch, if you do this dress for me, I promise I will introduce you to Mrs. Lincoln. And she interviewed for the position. There were several women on queue. She was the last one to be interviewed. She didn't think she was going to get the job because she was the only Black woman. Some of them came from, technically, trained backgrounds. Some of them spoke French, and so did Mrs. Lincoln, by the way. She was fluent in French. And when it was her turn for the interview, she said, my luck is not that great because she's exhausted. Her attention is no longer to me. I'm in drab clothes. How can I convince her? And it was in the conversation with Mrs. Lincoln that Mrs. Lincoln realized, wait a minute, this is the woman I want to hire because she knows a lot of things. She knows a lot of things. So she was hired on the spot. First officially appointed dressmaker in the history of the White House. And she was there with Lincoln's, I would say, butler, who was also a formerly enslaved man. So there were two formerly enslaved Black people on staff at the White House at the time.
Okay. That's really earth-shaking.
It is earth-shaking.
Yes.
I also think, Tita Loida, when we're looking at the dress in violet, at the time, violet was considered gauche.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be purple is for royalty. In Europe.
In Europe. And to wear that would be sort of a very public declaration that you're also saying that you're of royal class or something like that. And at the time, there was a lot of hardship, there was a lot of death, a lot of suffering, and it's unusual that she would choose the color violet. And to this day, in speaking to historians and archivists and fashion experts, we have not come up with a conclusion as to why. And it hit me one day that perhaps Lizzy chose the color violet because when you combine the color red and blue, you get violet. And she wanted this to be the way that it is. The Union and the Confederacy to finally come to terms.
Oh my goodness, I didn't
so
think
that's
of that.
just my own theory on it, and I'm going to stick to it because it's a lovely theory.
Yes.
But why would she choose, if she was the most sought after couturier of the day with a client wait list? Her waiting list was up to 3 years.
Wow.
You had to wait 3 years to get a dress made by Elizabeth Keckley.
My goodness gracious.
Yes. And why would she choose something that would crucify her publicly,
Yes.
It could potentially end her career as a couturier, but that
she broke conventions.
Broke conventions, and I would say started trends.
She's starting a trend.
Her work went beyond, and I extrapolate a little bit, Tita, but her work went beyond dressmaking. She used dressmaking as a platform for her activism. She was revolutionary. She organized a foundation called the Contraband Relief Association, which was designed to provide all the necessary resources to all formerly enslaved people who were recently freed: food, housing, employment, education, clothing, job training, a head start in life.
Yes.
And the foundation was so successful that it opened branches not only in the nation, throughout the nation, but there were branches worldwide in Europe. And obviously supported heavily by the abolitionists of the time. And arguably is the blueprint for today's welfare system in America. Because before the Contraband Relief Association, there wasn't.
none.
There was not anything there was not an organization that was designed to help those in need.
Wow, she is multifaceted, and
Yes.
also it was not just becoming the couturier. She
Yes.
was also, as you said, the welfare secretary of when there was none.
There was none.
Yes,
Yeah.
social work.
I mean, she was a heavy duty, I mean,
Multifaceted.
Multifaceted. She was working with the Department of War, with Edwin Stanton, talking deals with the head of the Department, the Secretary of the Department of War.
Yes.
That's at the most brutal war in American history, the Civil War.
Yes.
She was getting financial support from Wendell Phillips, the abolitionist, to Frederick Douglass, to you name it. Everybody. Mary Lincoln was signing checks. Abraham Lincoln was signing checks to her left and right because they believed in her cause. So she was an author. She authored her memoirs, her biography. She was a professor at Wilberforce University, the head of domestic arts and sewing. She obviously was a very successful entrepreneur. And, but most importantly, she was a mother.
She was a mother too.
She was a mother. She had a son by the name of George, and who was unfortunately killed in the Civil War for the Union Army. And
But did she ever marry?
she never remarried.
Meaning to say she was married.
She was married. She was married to another enslaved man, but he had a drinking problem. And she said, "You're going to interfere. Although I care for you very much, your problem is going to interfere with my purpose.
Wow.
We must split up.
Wow.
And
Yes.
until you can recover from it, you can just hit the road, Jack."
Wow.
So that was her.
Right there,
And I guess he
yes,
never
yeah.
recovered because she never
come back.
came back
Yeah.
together with him,
Right.
reunited with him.
Right,
So
right.
she was a woman with a purpose.
Yes. She's a woman for our time
Yes.
to make decisions like that.
Yes,
And to
yes.
be multifaceted. She was
Yes.
also a spy.
Yes.
Best friend of Mary Todd
Lincoln. Yeah.
And from the little that I read, she would be there when President Lincoln,
Absolutely.
has I think at the time when they were victorious in the
Yes,
South.
100%.
So Mary Todd, the wife, of course, was there, and Elizabeth Keckley was there too.
100%.
Yeah.
She was the only black person aboard the steamboat.
That's it. Yes.
That was headed towards
Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah.
To state the fact that we have won the war.
Right.
So
Yes, yes.
imagine too, she was coming back to the birthplace where she was enslaved.
Enslave. Wow,
So
what a story.
after all those years, she
Yes,
came back.
she came back as
from bondage to freedom.
Right. Yes.
So that's
why.
yeah.
That's why your story from bondage to becoming America's first couturier, but really many more.
many more. Yeah.
Yes,
Too
yes.
many to there's not enough. The subtitle has to be one liner. So there's so many things, you couldn't fit it all,
Yes,
But I think
yes.
important to know because she was an unseen, a hidden figure. The world recognizes the first American couturier was Charles James. That's what history tells us. But Charles James was born in 1907. Elizabeth Keckley died in Charles James was born in 1908. Elizabeth Keckley died in 1907.
Right.
We can just
Yeah.
do the math.
Yes. No. She's first. She's the
She's
first.
the first.
Man and woman.
Yes.
First American.
First American.
Yes. All right. You don't mind? I have some questions from the audience.
Of course.
Yes. All right. The first question is from Stephanie F. As a Filipino-American author, how did you emotionally connect to the story of a black woman rising from slavery to become America's first couturier?
Oh, what a lovely, I love that question. As Filipinos, we can all relate to it because we as Filipinos, we're also living under the colonial stick. This is so important to me to recognize that, we have shared experiences. We can definitely not compare slavery to the way Spanish people ruled the Philippines at the time, but there is definitely an intersection of that suffering and an intersection of that oppression that we can all relate to. So, as a person of color, as a Filipina, I also, hold with high esteem these stories like Elizabeth Keckley's because I'm also a mother of two daughters who are of Black Filipina descent. So this is an important, story to tell, and it's also important for me to treat it with reverence, not just as a mother raising children, but as a mother who also shares in the same experience, so, and also we share the same like we love fashion. Elizabeth Keckley and I love fashion.
And so their own dress, and so did you.
Yes,
yeah.
I sewed my own dresses. I sewed my children's dresses growing up. And Elizabeth Keckley sewed her son's clothes. And she also sewed the clothes of her master's children. So there's so many common threads, no pun intended. There's so many common threads here. But most important of all, I think, is the fact that as a Filipino woman, I cannot ever deny the fact that we all came from this history of living under that colonial stick. And you can only rise above the trauma if you face it.
As she did.
As she did.
Yes, yeah. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now from Pia A. What do you think Elizabeth would say if she could meet you today?
Oh my gosh.
A Filipina designer honoring her legacy through your own lens of faith and resilience.
That's a heavy question. Oh, first of all, I probably would be awestruck if she was in the same room today because I hold her with such high esteem. What would she would say? I think she would say something along the lines of, don't leave it. I'm so happy that you are so committed to not leaving any stone unturned. That there's just when you think that you know everything, there's so much more to learn. Just when you think you've done enough, you're still capable of doing more. I think that's what she would tell me.
Wonderful. That's great. That is wonderful. That's very good. Both you and Elizabeth turned pain into purpose. She rose from bondage. You have faced illness that limited your body, but not your spirit. Did you feel like you were walking alongside her as she wrote her story? Then there's Janet. Good insight. Janet G.
Wow, such good questions. Yes, I felt like the whole time she was holding my hand. I felt like at the time in my darkest hours, Elizabeth Keckley was there as a guiding force, as somebody that was although she had been gone for many, many, many years, was a living example of how we can rise above the hardest times. That if she was formerly enslaved and she could rise above it and she could make something out of herself, certainly a person like me who has far more advantages, far more resources, and conditions that are not so limiting can definitely rise above it too. So,
all right, that's a good lesson, everybody. All right, so find somebody that in your life has maybe not the same. She was in bondage, but Carlyn overcame MS, multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis, and
Yes.
she's here.
Yes.
Yes. So, hope for everybody watching. Now, this is from Carol D. Writing about a real historical figure must have been challenging. What moment in Elizabeth's life moved you the most?
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about it in the podcast, but we're all grown-ups here. Your audience has full agency of themselves. The moment when she was beaten, severely beaten. And not that I can relate to that, because thank God I don't have that kind of experience to draw from. But for me, to read about it and the way that she wrote it and the way that she told the story, she leaned on her faith. She leaned on her faith. She was prayerful about the suffering, and that she knew that this was not the end. And so for me, when I'm dealing with my own illness, that was the oppressor. That was symbolically the master, or trying to be the master. And Elizabeth said, never in my life, I'm paraphrasing, will I allow anyone to be my master but God.
Listen, everyone, did you hear that? Okay, that is so beautiful. Could you repeat it again for our audience?
And I'm paraphrasing it.
No.
Yes,
Still,
yes.
this
so
is your...
she said, amongst the turmoil of what she was going through, I mean, she was receiving beatings on a daily basis and rape. She was raped. That's why she bore a son through rape. She said, never, ever in my life will I allow anyone to be my master but God.
All right, very good. So in your case, that you will not allow this MS to be your master.
That's right. To
Yes.
take control of me.
Yeah.
To be the force that's going to decide whether or not I'm deserving of joy. I am deserving of joy because God said so.
Yes,
You know?
wonderful. Wonderful. Yes, woman of faith. Thank you. Now, this is from Monica G. What kind of research or emotional preparation went into writing this book? How does your Filipino heritage influence your storytelling and your design?
Okay, well, we know that Filipino people are tough. We are tough. We put a whole new meaning to rise above it. And I mean, no pun intended, but when there's a flood, we are happily canoeing down the floodway,
That's true.
So as a Filipina, I'm fortunate enough to have role models like my mom and my dad, and my elders who, I have seen and witnessed undergo some of the most incredible obstacles in life. My mom being widowed at a very young age, in a new country, having to raise 5 dependent children, all under, 18 years old, was quite unimaginable. And she did it, never having worked a day in her life. So I draw from that experience, and I'm very, very grateful that my mother committed herself to seeing us all through. And the other part of the question was?
How does your Filipino heritage influence your storytelling and design?
Yes. Well, the Filipino people are some of the most talented craftsmen in the world. Hands down.
Yes, I agree.
The meticulous details, down to the last beadwork, down to the last embroidered stitch. I've never seen anything like it. It holds up to the fashion houses in Paris. We've got designers like Michael Cinco, Rahul Laurel, Monique Lullier, that are just, Carrie Santiago, that are just doing incredible work. I draw inspiration from those masters. They bring to me a whole new understanding of our capacity to create beauty, and this beauty is a never-ending reserve. It's a vast reserve. It's sprawling, and I think the Filipino people are some of the most not just talented but beautiful people inside and out. So as a storyteller, the inspiration is limitless. All I have to do is remind myself I'm a Filipina. Salvacion Lim, who is slim, and all the great ones. The maestro who designed your wedding gown.
Yes.
Not Pitoy. He's amazing too.
The sister of Pitoy Moreno.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just You know, there's just a limitless supply of inspiration. And so in storytelling, I draw from that. I am a Filipina author. You know, I am a Filipina author.
All right.
Yeah.
For all those listening who are Filipino or with Filipino ancestors, parents, derive pride in being Filipino,
Yes.
as Carlyn does. Very nice. Okay. So, Elizabeth Keckley broke boundaries in her time. Who are the women who inspired you personally?
We're looking at one. You inspire me, and I've said that to you many times. Your role in my life has been life changing. One of the first books that I read about a contemporary leader was Mr. Lewis's book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And I'll never forget a passage there where he said, to be a good lawyer, one must work hard. And then he also said, keep going no matter what. And at the moment when I, started to, get to know you better, I realized, wait a minute, it's not just Mr. Lewis that's great. Mrs. Lewis is just, you turned the business around and you made it even more successful. So all those things, I think, really shaped me, not just as a mom, but as an entrepreneur, also as a writer. My mom, who is an exceptional writer, who is an amazing artist. She has her own way of expressing her art, a wonderful homemaker, and a very committed mother, I think, is one of my greatest inspirations too.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So this is wonderful book. So where can those listening, where can they find this?
So the book is available on Amazon. It's also available at Malik Books in Inglewood, California. One of the first bookstores that ever carried my book. Mr. Mohammed there is a proud supporter of the Elizabeth Keckley Story. And also in Barnes & Noble. And independent. I'm really more of an independent bookstore, author. So hopefully, you guys can.
Do you have a
check it.
website? If people wants to get in touch with you.
Oh, my website is www.elizabethkeckley.com.
All right. Very simple. And the spelling of Keckley is Keckley.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazon.com, everyone. So this is from Carlos P. How do you hope your book will impact young readers, especially Filipinos, other women of color, or Filipino women, other women of color, who dream of telling their own stories?
Oh, wow. I think it's so important to keep telling the story. Mary Oliver, one of my favorite poets, said, oh, gosh, I have to paraphrase this again. Basically what she said was, if you find something beautiful, tell the people about it. I'm paraphrasing it. Mary Oliver is so prolific. I hate to butcher her words, but she basically said, if you find beauty, tell all about it. And beauty can also rise from some of the most darkest moments, and how it is all about how you transmute and reinvent what is not good into something useful to be of use to others. So I think that's something that resonates to me as a writer. How do I think as a Filipino writer I am of use? Well, I think the story of Elizabeth Keckley is not just exclusive to Black people. I think this is a story of humankind. I think this is a story of the world. And when you learn about someone like Elizabeth Keckley, you begin to learn about why the world is the way that it is and what we can do to change it. What are the things internally that I can examine about myself that I could change or adjust in the way that I relate to others? I think that's so important. I think to be constantly curious is so important, to ask questions, and that there's nothing wrong if you don't know. and to be in awe, to be in awe, to take the time to, appreciate the small things. It's not always just the big wins, it's about the small wins too. There's an old Jewish belief that every minute of the day a miracle happens. We just get so busy that we don't pay attention. So I think innately as a Filipino woman, we are mindful. We're caring as a culture. So I take that with me as much as I can. I mean, I falter, of course. I take that with me as much as I can, especially when I'm writing.
Well, that was a wonderful ending to this terrific interview of Carmen Evelyn Nuyda, author of Lizzy, the Elizabeth Keckley Story, the first Black woman couturier. Thank you very
so much.
Yes, thank you for listening. This is the Loida Lewis podcast. Let us live, love, laugh, and learn together. Thank you. Very good.
So
Ang galing.
Thank you
very
so
nice.
much.
The Loida Lewis Podcast, hosted by Loida Lewis, is produced by the creators of Over a Glass or Two, Jesse and JV, executive produced by Laura Nicholas Olace. Rate and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for a chance to be featured on a future episode. Have a question for Miss Loida? Just email us on askloidalewis@gmail.com. Your question might make its way to a future episode. Subscribe on all major platforms to never miss a beat. Thank you for listening to the Loida Lewis Podcast. Let's live, love, laugh, and learn together